The following video contains language that may be inappropriate for young viewers. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Welcome to Behind the Bars, where we bring the unseen and the unheard stories from the depths of the prison system to the forefront. I'm your host, Jason Boss, and together we'll explore the madness, the chaos, and the harsh realities hidden behind the steel doors of prisons worldwide. From the local jailhouse to death row across the world, we'll show you the isolation, the seclusion, and the decades spent enduring unimaginable conditions. These are the stories of survival, struggle, and humanity in places most of us will never see. We're here to shine a light on what society often forgets, the voices of the incarcerated. Each story is real, each voice is authentic, and every moment reveals the raw, unfiltered truth of life behind the bars. Join me for a journey like no other, a journey into the darkness, the truth, and the resilience of the human spirit. This is Behind the Bars, real life, real stories. Ladies and gentlemen, friends and family, you are on Behind the Bars. I am your host, Jason Boss, and I have with me a very special guest. His name is Russell Dudley Kerr, and he is at the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. He has been doing a tremendous amount of time locked in, and he has a very fascinating story for all of us today. Russell, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing okay.
Well, okay.
I'm sorry. Let me say this. Your audience to you. I've been in a cage for 35 years. So let me premise that from the very get-go.
35 years.
By the grace of all. 35 years.
Wow.
In a cage.
Yeah.
In a 6x9 cage.
That's insane.
23 of those years have been in an area that they don't even have on the books. It's called super sec. And I've been around people who have killed themselves in that area, but they could not take it. So let me just say that from the very start.
Wow.
And it's by His grace. It's by His grace and His mercy that I'm still sane and here today, even having this interview. Thank you for this time, brother.
Beautiful. Beautiful, yeah. And, Russell, how old are you right now?
I believe 62.
62. And when did you get locked up? How long have you been down? 35 years, you said?
35 flat.
Wow. And so what year did you get locked up?
It was like the back end of 89.
Wow, 89. Okay. Now, let's take you through the very beginning of this. Tell me a little bit about your childhood. Tell me about your, what are some of the earliest memories that you have? What did your childhood look like? What was that like?
Well, my dad was an alcoholic. He wasn't very abusive. With our mom and dad, they would argue. I remember the argument. There'd be occasional shoving around a little bit, but it wasn't nothing real. He was just a drunk, and he couldn't stop at a couple of beers. I'll go into a little bit more detail on that a little bit later, but it came to the point where Mom just laid down a gauntlet and said, these are going to be us in the family, or it's going to be your liquor, one of the two. And he went to AA. He started going to AA after that, and he never touched a drop of liquor, to my knowledge, ever again the rest of his life. He's since passed on, both my mom and my dad.
Uh-huh.
But
now, how old were you when he started doing the AA thing?
When he started doing what?
AA. When he went to the AA.
That would probably be around like 13, maybe.
So
yeah, 12, 13.
And prior to that, you grew up with him drinking and being part of.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you have any brothers or sisters?
Yeah, I got a sibling. I got a little brother. He's like 6 years younger than me. Can I share a little story with you?
Absolutely.
Just a little bit.
Absolutely.
I grew up in Fort Worth. We were on like the poor side of town because he pretty much drank everything that we got in. You know, we were on food stamps, and I pretty much went to a school with, you know, more blacks and Hispanics than there were white and that kind of stuff. I even remember some holes in my wooden floor in my bedroom where mice and rats would come in, and I put like a little bowl of oatmeal and some crackers so they wouldn't mess with me while I slept in my bed. But anyway, that was a little bit of my childhood. And not very long after that, he got a red Ford pickup truck. It's kind of old. It's going to be real old now. But he put these wooden sides and boards on the side, and we would go to the farmer's market in Dallas, Texas. I mean, like 3 o'clock in the morning, we'd go there, you know, across town and load that truck up. I mean, load it all the way up there. And by the end of the day, everything would be pretty much sold. What I had was a little bitty, this time I was like between 9 years old and 12 years old. Each summer, or each, Texas got like a long time. So like spring, summer, and fall. It was all like pretty good weather, you know, winter season here in Texas. So I basically had a wicker basket that I put fruit and vegetables in and stuff like that that we had inside the back of the truck. And I would literally go place to place, business to business, all around Fort Worth, Texas, from early morning until like almost sunset. And I would basically, my thing to do was to go in there, show the people what I had to offer, and to bring them out to the truck where they could buy a lot more stuff. And so I pretty much was just running around all around Fort Worth, you know, for several summers. And then at the end of the night, we were pretty low on, you know, produce for the truck. He'd park across the highway, and where his favorite bar was, and I'd sit out there selling Mr. Fruit while he went in there and drank. And then I basically, you know, come 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, I'd go in there and go inside the bar and get him so we could go home.
And this was around when you were 13 years old, when you were 12 or 13?
No, that's like when I was like 9 to 12. 9 to 12.
So would you say that you had a good childhood, or did you have a bad childhood?
I wouldn't say bad, because I wasn't abused in the sense that I wasn't physical abuse. But I'll share this with you real quick. One time, I remember it was like all our spring. And he said, son, if you do real good this summer for me, I'm going to buy you a brand new bicycle. And it was like a little BMW, like little knobby tires, like motocross bikes. Mm-hmm. And I was so excited because, you know, all I had was like a banana seat bike before that, and he was going to buy me my very own bike. And well, that season came and gone, and I never got that bike. Yeah, I think you just drove that bike up. But, yeah. So,
did you experience any kind of violence in your childhood?
No, he wasn't. I mean, outside of going to school, having school fights and stuff, other than that, I was one of the few watches there. I'm like, I always got in fights. But other than that, I mean, I was basically raised in school in special ed. Because they diagnosed me early on, like I think in the second, third grade, that I had dyslexia as well as ADHD. And so they pretty much gave me Ritalin and others, so I could go some drugs and to calm me down and, you know, dole me out.
And when did they put you on Ritalin?
Like when I was in second or third grade.
Okay.
I mean, as soon as they diagnosed me that, they immediately put me on Ritalin, and then they put me on a couple other stuff, you know, calm me down and stuff.
And how do you feel that did for you? Did that do anything for you?
This might be a little bit. I don't know how people would take this. Okay, so here my mother was raised her grandmother, which I call Mama. She's my great-grandmother. And she was basically raised, I mean, her dad was an herbalist, I mean, like back in the late 1800s. And then my grandmother, his daughter, she basically learned from him growing up. She was learned to be an herbalist. So her whole life, she was an herbalist. This is in Cleveland, Texas. And that was her whole career. Well, she, being my great-grandmother, my mom being raised by her, she started having some difficulties in the back end of her life. And my mom and dad basically asked me would I mind cutting the back end of school. They talked to the teachers, the principal, and they said fine because I was special ed and stuff. So I said, yeah, it's fine. They were going to pass me anyway. Doing next to nothing, you know. So in the hardship my grandmother was going through, I was basically taking care of like 5 acres of land in her backyard, the size of her house. She had a pretty nice sized house. The size of her house in the front, I mean, it was basically just flowers, healing herbs, vegetables, berry bushes, vegetables, fruit trees, you name it, it was all there. Honeybees, everything was back there. But she needed help. I mean, just, you know, from weeding to reaping stuff and drying the herbs and stuff out. You know, they had this big barn. But I was basically there for like 3 or 4 different summers. You know, spring, summer, and fall, helping her, you know, bring all this stuff home. And so that gave me some relief from selling produce out there for work like I had been the former years. And I said all this to say, when Mama found out, when she found out that I was on Ritalin and all of those psychotropic drugs, I have never seen her so mad in my life. She was livid with my mom, but she should know better than to be taking me that poison at such a young age. And so basically she cut me off all of that. And this is back in a time where, you know, marijuana, you know, cannabis was frowned on, but she knew the healing properties of it. And she was basically in sun tea, in lemon lime sun tea, she would drop like a drop in like a glass. And it calmed me. I mean, you would never see it like night and day. Just I could be off the wall, bounce off the wall, and then after I had that for like 10, 15, 20 minutes, and all of a sudden I'm just calm. I mean, I'm just functioning calm. And then she showed my mom. She said, "Here is a perfect example. Why do I need to teach you something like this? You of all people should know." And my mom admitted she was wrong. And so anyway, so I was basically self-medicated from now on out, and then I started doing pretty good. I mean, I excel in my art. I'm an artist, even though I couldn't read and write. I excelled as being an artist. You know, from all my school years, best artist awards, and went to stuff in studio classes, oil painted, and I mean, advanced in art classes, advanced in years ahead. I mean, that was my thing. And sports, you know, I love sports. So anyway, you got any questions?
So you basically once they took you off the Ritalin, you were doing okay.
I mean, once she basically, you know, put me on like, you know, some of that, and she gave my mom some where she could just, you know, drop me in just a drink or something, just a drop, you know, and it would calm me. I get one at night, one in the morning, and one at night, and that's fine.
Okay.
That's just what I need.
Now, have you done drugs other than stuff like that? Did you ever get?
Yes, I did experiment when I was a teenager. You know, going to like concerts, and then we got a little bit older, going to clubs and stuff. So of course we did some drinking and, you know, did some pills and stuff like that. So yeah, we did that stuff. I mean, nothing hard, no hard drugs, but, you know, we did pills and stuff.
And so take me into your first issues that you started having, because you've been locked up a long time. Let's see, 1989 I think is when you said you got locked up on this. Is that correct?
I'm sorry. Please repeat that.
1989. That's when you got locked up, correct?
Okay. Right.
Okay. So take me up to that point. Take me up to what your life was like. What were you doing?
I was a tattoo artist.
Okay.
I was a tattoo artist, but before I became a tattoo artist, I went to prison in a 5.5-year stint. I was basically a driver for two other guys in the did robbery. Okay. And one of them got busted, and then he snitched, and I fell behind it.
Okay.
So I ended up doing 5.5 years.
Okay, and when did you do that? What year was that?
That was like in the in the 80s, like mid-80s.
Okay.
Because I did 5.5 flat.
5.5 flat. Okay, and that was just for accessory to some sort of theft?
To a robbery.
Robbery.
Yeah, to beginner robbery. Yeah.
And that was in Texas?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so that was your first stint into that. How did you get involved with those guys?
Well, the younger guy happened to be a football player with me during my high school years. And he was telling me about how his brother had just got married, and he had a part-time job. He lost his full-time job, and their own vehicle was broke. And he was just trying to make they were trying to make ends meet, and he wasn't even married, and they were like trying to get married, so he was just really going for a long time. And then he was jumping all that on me, and then he says, "Man, my brother just needs to come up." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He says, his wife used to work at this place. It was like a little bar and grill. And she knows all the ins and outs. And just, gave him the details. And basically just said, "Hey, man, we just need a driver. We're going to rob this place. And if you can be a driver, help us, to do this. And, we would appreciate it." And I'm like, I'm looking at him like, he's been my high school football buddy for like 3 or 4 years. Yeah, it's been like 4 years. No, 3 years. 3 years. And I'm like, yeah, all right, dude, whatever. I mean, he says, "Man, we got it all figured out, all this and that," and started going details. I'm like, "What to do? I don't even know about all that. Just, as long as I can stay in the background and help you get used to, and that's it." And anyway, one of them gets busted and spilled the beans, and that was that.
What did they rob?
It's a little bar and grill. It was like a little bar and grill type establishment.
So they just went in for the cash?
Yeah, they both went in. One of them, my buddy, was supposed to be like the guy that was inside the business by the door, like a watch out or something, where his brother, he knew more of the details of his soon-to-be wife, or his wife was, his soon-to-be wife gave him all the details that he needed, like, where he held the cash and I missed the safe and all that stuff. I didn't know anything.
Okay, so that was in the 80s, and then, so take me up to when you were arrested for the stint you're in right now.
Okay. Well, let me share something with you.
Absolutely.
This might be pertinent to this conversation. Because I was an artist, pretty much most of my school years, it's where I excelled at. And even though I came into the prison, I came into an era in the 80s where prison, not only just prison tattooing, but tattooing in general just started catapulting forward. And a lot of people started getting fascinated, like, prison art coming out of prison, and then art in general on the streets, everybody started getting tattoos. Well, I rode that wave. I seen that it was catching, even when I was in prison, so I started learning the tattoo trade. And I was like, I was in like 3 different professional tattoo catalogs. My flash was basically drawings. They call them flash sheets. So I was featured on all these and some other publications, and the whole time I was tattooing. So I was just basically boning up with all this that I needed to know to get out to be a professional tattoo artist. That's exactly what I did. Within 3 or 4 days of being out, I was working in North Wing Studio right now from Billy Bob, like the most famous Western bar in Texas is Billy Bob. But literally like a block away. So I'm tattooing in that Nicola. I showed Sally, the woman that ran the, not club, it's still another place. But I showed Sally, they worked at the shop, they ran the shop. All my portfolios, all my sheets, my drawings and stuff, and even some homemade. Well, it looked like free world tattoo guns. she was very impressed. She said, "You want a job?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "When can we start working?" I said, "Right now." So I basically got my job. I landed my job, and at that point in my life, I was like 22-year-old man. It's like that was my pinnacle. That's what I was trying to strive for, and I did. I mean, so then I went from tattooing there to doing some side business in the flea market on the weekends. I made a portable tattoo studio that I could carry down, build back up the flea market and drum the extra money there. I had some little tattoo cards I made up, little business cards for private appointments, you know what I'm saying? And then I went solo. I just literally quit the shop after about a month and a half and just went solo. I was making so much money just working for myself, just drumming up my own business. And I went from there to having my parole transferred to Jackson, Mississippi.
Hold on. You said what? You went from there to where?
I went from Fort Worth, Texas. And my parents who moved there from Eagle Mountain Lake, Fort Worth, to their company. They had a Kirby company, a business up in Jackson, Mississippi. So they asked me if I wanted to pull up there, and be part of dealers and stuff. And they were real loyal to me as I was down. I mean, just real faithful. And I'm like, I couldn't help but go back up and go with my parents. But so anyway, but we were all close anyway. So we transfer my parole. We get process the paperwork. I get successfully paroled up to Jackson, Mississippi. So I'm up there. I couldn't find a place like the flea market wasn't nothing like it was before. It was more antique type of flea market, wasn't it? So anyway, I landed this job at the only heavy metal club in Jackson, Mississippi. So I literally got a wall section, a tattoo studio inside a heavy metal club.
Wow.
Hey, sometimes it was so loud. I mean, with live bands and stuff right there. The amps were so loud. My tattoo gun was shaking in my hands. I'm over here trying to tattoo on something. It was so loud. Wow. But then again, I was still doing good. I mean, I had so much business. I had this, anything smaller than like a golf ball, I wouldn't do their club. I would we'd either go to their house, their apartment, or whatever, or we'd rent a motel room for the night. Like they want like a sleeve job, a half a sleeve, arm, 5-piece, leg, back job. We would do private appointments. And like I say, money was not the problem. I had plenty of money. I mean, there was just so many times where I want to get up and dance to some songs. I couldn't. I was just so busy. Anyway.
Yeah, and for everybody that's listening into this, Russell is a tremendous artist. Some of the art I've seen from him, I've never seen artwork that comes out, and so we will leave some links in the description below. You can get his art; it is available. His wife has it, and so we will figure out a way that those out there that are listening to this and want to see this art, which is, again, I've never seen anything quite like it. Okay, so you made it to the heavy metal club. You were doing your tats. You're somewhere in the 80s. So take me to the event. Take me to somewhere in 89 or anything that is important leading up to that day.
Okay. So at this point, I had, right before my parole was transferred, it was approved for transfer, they had an Arlington tattoo convention. It's a worldwide tattoo convention put on by Randy James, which is called the Texas Kid, and Papa Son. They featured this worldwide event, and this real nice event. It's a hotel. I mean, not a hotel. It's a real beautiful place. But there's people from around the world, tattooers from around the world. So I went there. I was there, going through, looking at everybody, meeting people. I had already, through letters and stuff, and contacted and, greeting them. And I met this woman named Tammy, and she had some really nice color tattoos and stuff, and we just kind of kicked it off, and we kind of toured the place together, ate and drank together. And then when we exchanged numbers, she gave me her number. Back then they still had beepers and stuff. Anyway, she gives me her phone number, name and her phone number, and what I did, I ended up doing was putting her information in my portable tattoo stuff. I got like a couple different designer cases to the flea market, I would take these out to biker swap meets, like on different weekends of the month or whatever. They have like a biker event, and I'd go out there and tattoo them. So I ended up putting that deal. Well, her information, I was going through all my stuff, sterilizing everything, getting all my inks together and stuff on one of these weekends at the biker event. And I ran into her information. And I'm like, oh, I remember this chick, you know. I remember her, and I lost it. It just sort of forgot because I got so busy. When I got to Mississippi, I got just so busy. So as I was going through my art supplies, I was needing to clean some of it up from a recent biker rally I held. Or, in fact, I was fixing to go to another biker rally, and I was getting some of my supplies cleaned. I ran across Tammy's number, her phone number that she had jotted down for me. And I'm like, wow, I remember this girl, and I had no idea if you got the information. I forgot to reach back up. So it's just more out of curiosity's sake than anything. I stopped what I was doing on the phone, and I called her. And she answered, and she's like, yeah, dude, I remember you. I remember you from tattoo convention and all this and that. You know. And I said, I'm sorry. I had put your name in my tattoo box and got lost in there and forgot all about it. And I moved for huge stuff from the Fort Worth area to Jackson, Mississippi, and it just got lost. She's like, I understand. She says, I got a girlfriend down he's over here in Louisiana, that she is actually busy right now helping people. Part of her part-time job is helping people make clothes and stuff for the Mardi Gras parade. And she's doing her own thing in her flat. It's like a little condominium. She says, I can basically make use of it right now if I needed to. And I said, okay, well, so what are you saying? She says, well, dude, it's been 2 or 3 days. We can use her little condominium right there, right there in New Orleans. I'm like, okay, I can spend a few days. So we connect. She gives me the girl's address. I meet her there. She uses her own car. I meet her there at her girlfriend's there in Louisiana, and New Orleans. And we have a big time. We go out there. It's like pre-Mardi Gras. It wasn't Mardi Gras. It was like pre-Mardi Gras. So we're out there just having a good time, doing the whole clubbing scene, and checking up together and all that good stuff. So I guess like the last morning I was there, I would wake up to hearing her on had talked to her brother on the telephone, and she says she reached over. She says, "Yeah, I talked to my brother for a second." So as you're having this conversation, it's like I'm hearing it one side. So anyway, then she looks over at me and she says, "Do you happen to know anybody that might use some paraphernalia?" I'm like, "What? Like smoke paraphernalia?" She's like, "Yeah." Like she says, "There's like a lot of it." So I said, "Like, what do you mean a lot?" And then she talked to her brother again, and then she gets back. She says, "Well, my brother is at my house." Her house was her mom's house until her mom got remarried, and she moved out. Her daughter Tammy kept her mom's house, which is actually a 2-bedroom house. So she basically taken over, and her bedroom, her mama's bedroom, become her bedroom, and her spare bedroom was empty. And then this is what she said. Her brother had put all the paraphernalia in that empty bedroom. I'm like, okay, so you got a bedroom full of paraphernalia. And she's like, yeah, there's every kind of comb, roach clip, papers. She says, you name it, it's all there many times over. I'm like, is it all brand new? She said, yes, it's all brand new. So I'm like, like little lights are kind of going up a little bit in my head. So I'm like, okay. I said, well, she says he wants $5,000 for it. So I'm like, okay. Yeah, I'm trying to factor all this in. And I said, well, he says he wants cash for it. I said, well, listen, first I'm going to have to see what you're talking about before I can make any kind of agreement. I said, and we just have to go from there. So as we were driving back to her place in Livingston, right there across the border of Louisiana and Texas, Livingston,
we go over there and we drive up in there and we go in the house and we go in the bedroom. And I'm like, wow. I'm talking about literally it was a bedroom, an empty bedroom, just full of paraphernalia. I mean, every kind of bonfires you could think. I mean, everything. The whole bedroom's full of it. And I'm like, so you want $5,000 for it? He says, yeah. I said, well, dude, I have like $3,000 in my house, my apartment back in Jackson, Mississippi. I said, well, I live in Jackson, Mississippi, but it's in my apartment, in my bedroom, in my closet, matter of fact. But I have like $3,000. Plus, I have to take care of my rent. It was like for a couple of weeks. Plus, I got to take care of my rent, you know. He says, look, dude, you give me $3,000, and it's yours. So I look at it, I say, so all this is mine. He said, yeah. So I'm like, okay, because check this out. I need to give you some background. I'm tattooing in a heavy metal club, the only heavy metal club in Jackson, Mississippi. It's called the Creek. Back then it was called the Creek. And I had a wall section. It was like a wall section tattoo studio inside this heavy metal club. And in Jackson, Mississippi, entirely at that time had paraphernalia laws that, you know, people basically didn't have no paraphernalia. They were just making do with whatever they had. So immediately in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I could use this stuff right here. I could make like a miniature catalog, make photographs of it, put price signs on it, and just basically sell it right there in a club I was tattooed in. And we'd go like real fast. Yes, I know I've had inflections and I was breaking some laws and stuff, and I should have thought about that, as well as when I told him, I could probably do this. And I said that I can fit it in my truck. I had a short bed 57 Chevy. It was a street rod. It was a hot rod, but it was street legal. I customized it. So it was a short bed, but I didn't have the pop rivets on the back where I could put stuff down with the tarp over it. And I didn't have time to be doing all that anyway. And I'm expressing that to him. And he says, listen, dude. He says, I know somebody that's got a Cadillac, the old style Cadillac with a big trunk, big floorboards, big seats, all that kind of stuff. I said, okay, and so what are you going to do? Just drive it up there and drive it back? He says, no, drive it up there. You can drive it back to your place, get your stuff, put it up there, everything. And I said, okay, what about the car? He says, just dump it in the lake. I mean, I'm like, okay. Like, obviously, this car is hot. In my mind, I'm like, register, okay, this car is probably hot. To be dropping in the lake. But he says, yeah. He says, so I'm like, man. So he's saying it's going to be cool and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, all right, dude, so how do I get back? He says, just fly back and we'll pick you up at the airport. I'm like, all right. And he says, then you'll have, the trucks here and you take care of everything and go back home. I'm like, okay, man. All right. So anyway, we packed this Cadillac full, to the brim. It could barely close the trip so tight. The floorboards, the back seat, all the way up to the window level. The front seat, floorboard, front seat, all the way up to the window level. It's packed tight. And I said, I'm ready. The only thing is, I didn't think that I would need. And it had a spare tire in it and a jack, but it was flat. And this is right when we started packing. I'm like, man, this don't do no good. So I just basically choked it there in the yard. So we started packing it. Anyway, I'm driving. I'm driving from Livingston, and then I cross the 22-mile bridge from Texas into Louisiana. And I get into the interior of Louisiana, like maybe, 30, 40, 50 miles. And I have a flat on my back tire, worst case scenario. Oh, did you catch the other day when I was telling you in the process of looking at all that paraphernalia, I think like a little kid shoebox. It was full of ID cards.
Yeah. Yeah, but that was on the second one, so go ahead and tell us that again.
Okay. In the process of looking at all this paraphernalia, I was going to stuff, looking at things. I noticed like a little kid's shoebox, there was a lid on it. So I opened it up, and inside of it, like, just, I mean, it was like full ID and driver's license. And I'm just, out of curiosity, I'm just kind of flipping through them, man. It must have been literally like 100, 150 of them. So I'm like, just flipping through them. And I found like, I'm like, what's this? This is all, it's just some stuff that, you know, pickpockets in Louisiana. You know, like, I don't want to know, but just around Louisiana, New Orleans. I'm like, oh, it's just a pickpocket stuff. He says, yeah. And then so I'm flipping through it, and then I see it, and it looks like me. I mean, the guy could almost like pass through like a brother, twin brother. So I'm like, I pulled it up. I said, what's up with this? And he says, oh, it's just, like I said, a pickpocket. I said, can I have it? He says, yeah. And I see the curiosity in his eye. I said, man, if I'm going to be driving there with all this stuff, and I happen to get pulled over by a cop, I'd like to have something to blow out. He says, okay, yeah, it's yours. Go ahead. So I said, okay. So I take out my driver's license. I put it in my suitcase. I had my suitcase for my little bit of candy just in the week with her for a few days anyway. So I just walk out my driver's license, put it in my suitcase, and then put that license in my wallet. Just the worst case scenario happened. And that's exactly what happened. The worst case scenario happened to me. I'm going, like I said, I'm in Ventura, Louisiana, about 30 to 50 miles, and one of my back tires blows out. So I pull over on the side of the highway and walk back to the last town that I had passed, which has been there for 4 miles, to use a telephone. We didn't have cell phones back then. We just had beepers. Mm-hmm. That's how long ago. Yeah. So anyway, I go back to the last town to use the telephone to call the officer with the record to come out there on the highway to fix my back tire. So I call the place, a record service. I call the operator, and she said she'll dispatch me to a record service, and that was taking place. And as I'm talking, a cop car literally pulls up. I mean, not fast, just real, like, slow. He ain't gonna rush me. And he gets out, and then he walks over to me, and I'm like, the officer is still trying to, get this record service. He says, I said, yes, sir. And he says, are you needing a record? I said, well, matter of fact, I am. I was just trying to call one. He said, I happen to know somebody to help you out. I said, okay. And he's seen the curiosity in my face, I guess. He says, well, this is just regular protocol. At nighttime, when there's something like that happens on the highway, we investigate. I said, okay, cool. I'm dressed real nice and everything, like a Texan kind of thing, with snakeskin boots, snakeskin belt, a cowboy hat, blazer jacket, nice pants. I mean, I look a little bit presentable. So anyway, he's helping me. He's accommodating me. He's calling on the telephone to get a record out there. He asked me, he says, by the way, you have a driver's license? I said, yes, sir. So I pull out my wallet. I hand it to him. He looks at it, looks at me, looks back at it, and he hands it right back. Everything's cool. So I put it back in my wallet, and then, okay, we'll wait. And at that time, another cop car shows up. He's like 30, 40 feet from us, and a state trooper, a Louisiana state trooper in another cop car, he pulls up. But they pull next to each other like side by side, facing different directions where they can talk to each other for their driver's seat without getting out. Mm-hmm. And they're not even really paying us attention at all. So I don't feel threatened by the scene. I don't feel threatened by it. So I'm like, okay, this don't look bad. In other words, I wasn't tripping or nothing. So I was like, okay, this is wrong bad. So then the sergeant gets out. State trooper stays in his car. The sergeant gets out and just casually walks over to us, and he's asking his precinct officer, like, hey, what's going on here? And so his officer, I'm hearing it as I'm talking to him about this record service, and I hear the sergeant ask his co-worker that question, and his co-worker says, he just needs to get a record. He got a flat tire on the highway. And like I say, everything sounds cool. So I'm like, okay. And he looked at me. I talked to the record people, and they said this and that, and I took the location, and we hang it. Sergeant looks at me and says, you got a driver's license? I said, yes, sir. I said, but your officer right there, I'm pointing at him, but this officer there, he already asked me for it, and I already showed it to him. And he says, okay. He says, you mind if I see it? And I didn't want to draw any more in, so I pulled my wallet back out, and I handed it to him. He looks at it, he looks at me, starts going like what his officer did. And then he looks back at it, and he said, what's your middle initial? And it stumped me. To this day, I remember the name, the guy's name was Michael Green. And I don't recall a middle initial. And it just stumped me. And then he looks at me and he says, you're not 6'2". Would you mind putting your hands on the hood of the car? I'm like almost 6. I'm not 6'2", but apparently this guy snapped. And now I got that cop, that sergeant cop, and then this trooper, and he's just like I say, about 30, 40 feet away. And all I could do, I was just a cop. So I put my hands on the hood of the car. So I'm sitting there thinking, they take me back to the little county like precinct and stuff, and then this is what's so weird to me. To this day, I can really can't put it together. The dispatch, not the dispatch, but the person that takes the intake people in, the fingerprints and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. He asked me. He says, "Dude, what's up with this hot Cadillac full of smoke paraphernalia?" I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." And that was the last thing I ever heard about any kind of paraphernalia. The person, whoever's car was stolen from, they dropped charges. So I thought immediately that either I was going to be, parole violation, a blue warrant, they call it a blue warrant. I was going to get some kind of parole violation or something behind this paraphernalia being on Louisiana state line. So that's what I'm looking for. That kind of case. Then they came back and say later on, like a week or so later, they said, this driver's license you got of Michael Green came out of Harris County, Houston, Texas, robbery, a Blockbuster in this world. I'm like, okay, and look, man, they're charging you with aggravated robbery. I said, you know what? I mean, I haven't even been in Houston in at that time, I hadn't been in Houston in 6 years. Because, when I pro'd out, I had been there in my younger years. But when I pro'd out to Fort Worth, Texas, Eagle Mountain Lake, right outside of Fort Worth. I haven't even been in the Houston area in at least 6 years. Mm. And then I went from Fort Worth, and my parole was transferred to Jackson, Mississippi. So, that's like I went the opposite direction. And even when I went to Louisiana, Houston, Texas was not only another state, but it's like, how big Texas is. It's like all the way across Texas. Mm. So I'm like, you can't even match up the timelines enough on it. But anyway, it just went downhill from there. It's like, so anyway, they charged me with aggravated robbery. And when I went to court, I was presented there in Harris County Court. They said, the court appointed as a black African lawyer, court appointed attorney. He said that the judge had offered me 45 aggravated years for that crime. And I said, man, I didn't do the crime. I told him this and that. I explained to him. He said, listen, I will talk to the judge and the DA, but they're coming at me with 45 aggravated. I'm like, dude, I can't take that. I can't do that. I'm saying, first of all, I hate to even cop for something I didn't do to begin with. But that kind of time, there's no rationale. And I can't even think to even wrap my head around something like that. He said, okay. He said, well, we'll see. And it came back and said, well, they're talking about setting a trial date. I said, a trial date? Because usually, because I've been through the system before, and usually they'll come at you 2 or 3 times and try to get you to cop and all that stuff and lower the time down. No, they went straight to trial date. I'm like, well, then crank it up. Because I'm sitting there thinking, all they had on me was a driver's license. Mm. So I'm happy to talk to this attorney a little bit later. I told them, go ahead and crank it up. So they cranked it up, and they set a date and everything. But the attorney came and seen me one time during visitation, and we were discussing the case. And matter of fact, twice, because two different times, both times, I asked him to make a motion, draw a motion, to ask for a live lineup of the three. There was three people in this robbery, it was told to me, two women and a guy. And during this period, they never come and gave me a live lineup or nothing. I'm like, then how did they know who I am? How can they pick me out of anything if I've never even had a lineup? And I also found out in that robbery. Okay, check this out. They said in this Blockbuster video store that was robbed, that the store had audio tapes. But whoever, there was actually two people that robbed this store, and they never even asked me. Just even out of curiosity, they never asked me who was my partner, and I always thought that was strange too. So anyway, they said that two people, got these people, the employees, took them into this little side office area, and the guy that was supposed to be me went immediately to a top shelf and ejected a tape and put the tape in some case or something, wherever they're putting their stuff in. And I'm like, how would I even know about that? And so anyway, it's convenient that all of a sudden they have no recorded tape or nothing of this. So how can they pick me out for something? The only thing, and to this day, I've always wondered, it's like how they never had given me a live lineup. How do they pinpoint me? How can they? They have no tapes, no evidence as far as a live lineup. They couldn't. So how did they come up with my image and then say this was him who did it? Check this out too. They say the guy that was supposed to be me was wearing mirrored sunglasses, but yet this one woman said I had pretty blue eyes. My eyes are hazy, but that's just no point. This guy that's supposed to be me again. She was coming towards me in the store because he was smoking a cigarette, and she was going to tell him to extinguish his cigarette in the store. Extinguish the cigarette. So as she was walking towards me, she said, when she noticed my eyes, I had pretty blue eyes. Behind mirror sunglasses, right? So anyway, beside maybe the point. I asked her, I snapped, and I'm writing with pad to my lawyer, and I'm asking, is he wearing any gloves? And he asked her, was this person wearing any gloves? And she says, no. I write down, how was he smoking a cigarette? And she says like this, and what I mean by, I know we're on video, I mean audio. That's basically like the outside of your palm facing her. I've got tattoos. My name, Russ, on my right hand, Kerr on my left hand, in bold letters. So I can't, I'm realizing this. So he doesn't have gloves on. He's smoking his hands, and the tattoos are facing her. So I asked her, I wrote down and asked the attorney, I said, was there anything noticeable about his hands at all? And she says, no, nothing at all. And then to the jury, I hold up both of my hands to let them see the bold tattoos that I got right there. If she can notice so-called pretty blue eyes behind mirrored sunglasses, how can't she notice these bold tattoos on me? See what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. The whole trial was like this. There's all kinds of things that just didn't add up. This one woman said during the questioning, she said he cocked the gun like this, like a motion when you pull back the chamber. I don't know if that's what you call it, but like the top end of the gun, when you pull it back. Okay, and then the other woman, when she was on the stand, she said he cocked it like this, and she's using the motion like her thumb is pulling back the trigger. So, I mean, that's another contradiction. It's like the whole trial is full of contradictions. And these are things from a layperson that had no comprehension. I mean, outside of going to court before, other than that, that was my whole extent. And at this time in my life, I could barely even read and write. I was raised, diagnosed with dyslexia as a child, as well as ADHD as a child. So I was basically raised in special ed my whole life, all the way up past 10th grade, I was in special ed classes. And that's
all right.
very
So let me jump in here real quick. What year was that this went down, the whole Cadillac issue time?
This was like 89, I believe.
1989.
I believe it's like back in 88 or 89, right there.
And so because of the ID from this chick, you were hauled in for this Michael's ID because he was in the Blockbuster and he was robbed as well. Was he an employee or was he a customer?
He was supposed, I didn't hear anything about any customers, but all I heard was there was two women that worked there along with this dude, this Michael Green that worked there. And his ID, I don't know if the women's IDs were took up or not or anything. Matter of fact, they never had a gun. They never had anything for the robbery, nothing. I mean, so who knows what they did, just money through the rest or whatever. Who knows? I don't even know how his ID ended up in that doggone shoebox.
You have 1 minute
like
left.
that.
Okay. So where was this Blockbuster that was robbed? Do you know?
I don't know what side of Houston it was on. It was somewhere in Houston, Harris County.
Okay, so Houston and Harris County in 1989. Now, you were talking about some of the anomalies. When you were talking about taking the tape out of the top shelf, was that their video surveillance tape?
Yeah, that's what it sounded like, yeah.
Okay. And you also were, how long did you have this trial when you started doing a trial and you said crank it up?
Man, they took me swift. I mean, literally, I think he was wrapped up in like 2 hours. They took me swift. Oh, let me share this with you and your audience. This is something. My wife is a black African American woman. She's my soulmate, and she has told me that my white boy ass lives in a bowl. She says, you just don't know what was done to you. And I described to her the courtroom situation. She was floored. She couldn't believe that I didn't snap what happened to me. This is a point in time when the skinhead epidemic was going on here. I don't know about where you're from, but here in America and in Texas, they had like skinhead epidemic there back around that time.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it was summertime, and I'm used to keeping my head shaved because I feel like at home in prison because prison's real hot. So my head was pretty much still shaved. And I was comfortable with it for being like it for years. And it wasn't no racial thing. It was just how to be comfortable in prison as much as you can. And so I was comfortable with that. And anyway, so I'm in trial with basically my stubble on my head. And it was a black judge, Judge Walker Jr., a black judge. It was part of the NAACP, a big-time member of it. I looked at his credentials stuff in the law book. A long-time standing member. I told my wife, and she's like, okay. So the lawyer is a black African lawyer who can barely understand English, much less talk it. My DA, the court DA, was a black man. I don't know his name, he's a black guy. The courtroom typist was a black woman. The bailiff was another black man. And something about the lawyer, not only was he court appointed, but his English was so rough. I don't know if you've ever spoken to, somebody that, doesn't know the English language and they're from like Africa. They got a real harsh language to their English. Well, the jury, no less than 10, 12, 14 times asking to keep repeating themselves because they couldn't understand what he was saying. It got to the point where I'm looking at these people in the jury stand. They're looking at their watches and they're looking at the clock on the wall. Like they're just impatient. They're rolling their eyes and all that kind of stuff, that kind of body language. And I'm like, man, this ain't good. This is not good at all. So,
Now, what was the jury comprised of? What colors?
Mixed. That was the only thing in the courtroom outside of myself. It was mixed. I mean, that was a mixed match.
Okay.
But I mean, and the courtroom itself, it seemed like it was primarily black.
Okay, and the judge's name was Judge Walker what?
Judge Walker Jr.
Judge Walker Jr. is what you said?
Right. Yeah. He surely passed, but he was kind of elderly guy at that time anyway.
Okay, and what was your attorney's name?
Man, I don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay. I'm sure that's all in the transcripts.
Oh, let me share this with you.
Mm-hmm.
My wife, Frances, she found this out as well. This attorney, I don't know the time, but he was disbarred from practicing law in the state of Texas. I filed a motion, or I filed some paperwork, basically, challenging this guy who's been disbarred from practice. Should my case not be automatically put up for appeal because of his misconduct in practicing law? But he's been disbarred as a lawyer.
Okay.
I don't know if that means anything.
Well, I mean, it sounds like it all means something. What was, when the jury returned the verdict, what count? Was it unanimous?
Well, I don't know if it's unanimous, but it was enough for me to say I was guilty.
Okay.
And it went from 45 years to 60 aggravated years. And the judge asked me, and here's something else. Judge Walker asked me, he asked if I wanted the jury to sentence me or to him. And I deferred to him because I thought he would have a little bit more sympathy to my situation. Because obviously he's hearing the case like I'm being presented with it. But he gives me 60 aggravated. He says, do I have a permit? I said, sir, I can't do that. I just can't do that kind of time. And it's like, and he's like, well, you're going to have to find some kind of way to do it because you got it. So I'm like, okay. And then he asked me, do you wish to appeal the decision? I said, yes. And I said it real clear, yes, sir, I do. And then only later do I discover, a few months later, I'm ordering my court transcripts so I can file a motion. I had a guy in prison, like a paralegal, who was going to help me file my motions and my appeals and stuff. Because my lawyer, even though he said he was going to do it, he just disappeared. Never heard from him again. And so I hired this guy in prison to help me file these motions. Because like I said, I can't read or write, basically. And so we get the trial transcripts in the mail, and he's going through them. And the next time I see him, he says, Rusty, I read everything here. He says, but why did you deny your appeal? I said, what? And he shows me the paper. He had it flagged. He shows it to me. He says, right here it says you denied your appeal. And he says, we can file some motions and hopefully they'll open. I said, what can do? I said, it's open. Just keep the money I gave you, and this is over. And then from there, in my mind, I had enough. That was the end all for me. I was tired of everything I was dealing with and all what I was going through. And from there, I just thought, I've had enough. That was my limit. And from there, that's when I started playing my escape. Because I tried the system, and the system just kept telling me. I said enough is enough. I just have to do it my way.
Wow. That's interesting. Now, I think we should save the escape for another podcast because I think that would be a very interesting thing, and I want to keep this where we are at right here. Now, have you tried to appeal this somehow in these 35 years? Have you figured out an attorney?
Well, the thing is, I'm from all I understand, I'm seeing pretty much every ball. Over the last few years, if it wasn't for this ag time, I probably never would have been able to read and write. But I'm basically self-taught and learning from Scripture. Scripture has actually helped me. Was my aid besides the Kodesh Ruach, the Holy Spirit, Kodesh Ruach. Outside of that, I've never even learned how to read and write. So.
And have you had any attorneys or anybody contact you in the 35 years and discuss this case with you at all?
No, not that it was no case. No, and I've always known if I could just get the original case properly investigated, then that case would be dismissed. There's no doubt in my mind. If I just had a good investigating team, could see the evidence for what it was or the lack thereof, that case would be overturned. There's no doubt in my mind.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like you need a good private investigator and a good attorney, and it sounds like something could probably be done at this point. I mean, is because it went on the transcript that you said no appeal, is that make the case completely dead? I mean, couldn't an attorney overthrow that as well?
And I mean, well, this is what that guy told me, basically, from what I recall. He says, we can appeal that. He says, we can appeal the case, no doubt. But we can appeal that right there because they should have something on transcript or microfilm or something, or maybe a court report. We can challenge that. And I told him, dude, I said it's clear as day. You know, I mean, I said, yes, I wish to appeal this. And he says, well, it is what it is on the paper, so we have to challenge that. I'm like, that's what I'm saying. At that point, I just lost all patience. I just lost it. I mean,
okay. Well, this is a very intense podcast. I mean, I really, really, really appreciate your story on this, and I believe, you know, obviously I'm no attorney or anything of the sort, but I would imagine that, you know, the right people looking into this could probably spring you out of here. I'm just guessing. So I'd like to present this out there to everybody. You know, if there's those who are listening to Behind the Bars that are attorneys that are practicing in Texas, or that people in any attorney at all that could look into this, or a private investigator that could look into this, I am sure that Russell would love to have that happen. And it sounds like a complete setup. It sounds like a complete frame job. And, you know, if they could not track you to the Houston Blockbuster, it seems like that you should be eliminated as a witness right out of the gate. So, all right. Well, my friend Russell, is there anything else on this particular podcast going up to this point that you would like to discuss? Anything at all?
I don't know if this would be the right time, but there's been very few opportunities for learning since I've been here, outside of just, you know, some books here and there and stuff, which I had to have self-taught. But here recently, like the last couple of years, they've allowed this possible we're able to record this right here on the phone with these tablets we have. And I have taken absolute full advantage of everything on here, the content. I've learned like 12 different certificates and a whole bunch of learning, all different kind of learning, audio, tapes, and self-improvement, all that's tracked on here. And if somebody were to say, well, what's he doing just wasting away in the cage? Because I'm literally in the cage 24/7 and have been for 35 solid years because of that escape. They'll know just by tracking my progress just the last couple of years that I am, and that I haven't even had a disciplinary case in over 10 solid years. You go outside trustees to get them more than that. And so basically, I am doing my very best. But it just don't think my best is going to be good enough. I feel that needs to be said.
All right, brother. Keep your head up. I'm sure somebody's going to come along very, very soon and do something about this. I'm going to look into this myself and research this. I appreciate you being on the podcast. Everybody out there, thank you so much, guys. Russell's information, you can either snail mail him or you can also run it through Securus. I'm sure he would love to get a hold of you guys. If you guys would know of a private investigator or an attorney that can look into this, contact me. All my information is in the description below. Russell Dudley Kerr, thank you so much for this podcast. I appreciate you, brother.
Thanks, Jason. Y'all be praised, brother.
Y'all be praised. All right.